My CEO took me into the bathroom at the office party. What she whispered changed everything. The moment she locked the bathroom door behind us, I knew my life was about to change. The click of the lock echoed in the quiet room, louder than the music from the party outside. The lights above us were bright and cold. The air smelled like soap and something soft and expensive, probably her perfume. She stood between me and the door, calm, steady, like she had planned this. "This stays between us," she said. My heart was beating so hard I felt it in my throat. I did not know if she could hear it, but I was sure she could see it in my face. I had no idea how I ended up alone in the women's restroom at the company holiday gala with my CEO. I did not know what she was about to say, but standing there in front of her, I felt like everything that had been falling apart in my life was about to spill out. 8 months earlier, my life looked completely different. I was engaged to Rachel. We had picked out wedding invitations with small blue flowers printed along the edges. We were going to get married in May in a small church outside Columbus, Ohio. I worked at Horizon Data Group as a junior analyst. It was not exciting, but it was steady. I believe steady was enough. Then one Wednesday evening, I came home and the apartment was half empty. Her side of the closet was gone. Her shoes were gone. The framed photo of us at Lake Erie was gone. The couch looked smaller somehow. There was a note on the kitchen counter. The engagement ring I bought her sat beside it. She had met someone else. Someone older. Someone with money. Someone who could give her a better life. That was how she wrote it. She said she was sorry. She also transferred $3,000 from our joint account before she left, half of everything we had saved. 3 days later, my landlord told me the rent was going up $400 starting the next month. He said it like it was normal, like it would not crush me. I sat at the kitchen table that night with a notebook and a calculator. My paycheck after taxes was about $2,400 every 2 weeks. Rent would be almost $1,500 a month. Then there was my car payment, insurance, phone bill, internet, student loans, credit cards. When I finished adding it all up, I had less than $500 left each month for food and gas. I started cutting everything. Breakfast became black coffee. Lunch was instant noodles eaten in my car in the parking garage. Dinner was whatever was cheapest at the gas station near my apartment. Some nights I skipped eating completely and just drank water so I could save a few dollars. I picked up every overtime shift I could, 10 hours, sometimes 12. I stopped sleeping well. I would wake up at 2 in the morning thinking about bills. I would stare at the ceiling and do math in my head. If I paid the electric bill late, would they shut it off? If I skipped the credit card payment, how bad would the interest be? At work, I started slipping. I used to be sharp. My reports were clean. My numbers were strong. But now, I made small mistakes. I mixed up data in a client presentation. I forgot to attach a file in an important email. One afternoon, I actually fell asleep at my desk. My performance review said I needed to improve focus and time management. That was corporate language for, "We are watching you." Then the email came. Subject line, new leadership announcement. Her name was Victoria Hale. She came from a major firm in Chicago. The rumor was she had laid off nearly a third of the staff at her last company to improve efficiency. No second chances. If you did not perform, you were gone. The office changed overnight. People came in earlier. They left later. Nobody laughed at lunch anymore. Consultants walked around asking hard questions about value and productivity. I felt like I was walking through a storm every day. I started checking job listings during my lunch breaks, sitting alone in my car with a cup of noodles in my hand. Every posting wanted more experience than I had, more certifications, more everything. My chest tightened every time I looked. Then the company holiday gala invite showed up in my inbox. Attendance strongly encouraged, which meant required. I almost did not go, but I knew if I skipped it, someone would notice. So I put on my best navy shirt, the only one without a stain on the collar. I took the bus downtown because parking cost too much. The ballroom was huge. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The room smelled like steak and expensive cologne. People stood in small circles, laughing, holding glasses of champagne. I grabbed a plate of small sandwiches and stood near the back. My coworker Jason talked about his ski trip to Colorado. Someone asked me what my holiday plans were. I said I was staying local. That was code for I cannot afford to go anywhere. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I did not even have to look to know what it was. When I checked, my stomach dropped. Insufficient funds. Rent was due in 2 days. I tried to breathe. I told myself to just make it through the night. Smile. Leave quietly. Figure it out tomorrow. I took a step toward the exit. Leaving already? A voice said behind me. I froze. Victoria Hale stood beside me. She wore a black dress that looked simple but probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly. Her eyes were sharp, focused, like she saw everything. Just heading out, I said. My voice sounded small. We need to talk, she replied. Somewhere private. My heart dropped. I thought this was it. She had seen the mistakes. She had decided I was not worth keeping. I nodded and followed her. I could feel people watching as we walked across the ballroom. She led me down a hallway away from the noise. The music faded behind us. She stopped in front of the women's restroom and pushed the door open. She glanced inside. Empty. Inside, she said. I hesitated for a second. I know, she said calmly. Then she stepped in and locked the door behind us. Now she stood in front of me under the bright white lights, close enough that I could see the small line between her eyebrows. This stays between us, she said again, softer this time. I swallowed. My mind raced. Was I fired? Was this about my performance? Was she about to tell me I had ruined everything? Instead, she stepped closer and looked at me in a way no one at work ever had. Not like a number, not like a problem, but like a person. I have been watching you, she said quietly, and in that moment I realized this conversation was not about losing my job. It was about something much bigger. She stood close enough that I could see the small gold flecks in her brown eyes. Not cold, not angry, just focused. I've been watching you, she said again, her voice low and steady, and what I see doesn't match your file. My throat felt tight. I did not know what to say. My file? I asked. She nodded. When you started at Horizon, your work was clean, sharp. You caught errors other analysts missed. Your projections for the Northbridge account saved this company a lot of money. I blinked. I did not know she even knew about that. I thought I was invisible. Just another name on a payroll list. But 5 months ago, something changed, she continued. Deadlines slipped. Numbers got messy. You started looking tired. Distracted. I stared at the sink behind her because I could not hold her gaze. I'm handling it, I said quietly. Are you? She asked. The question hit me harder than I expected. No one had asked me that. They just judged the results. She took one slow step closer. You rotate the same 3 shirts every week. You stop joining team lunches. You sit in your car alone. Last Tuesday, you checked your phone during the meeting and looked like you were about to pass out. That was the day my landlord sent a warning about eviction. My stomach twisted just remembering it. She exhaled softly. I ran the numbers. My heart stopped. Your salary compared to the cost of living here, she continued. Rent, loans, insurance, groceries. The math does not work. I felt exposed, like she had opened my bank account and read every desperate transfer I had made just to survive. You are not managing, she said gently. You are drowning. The word landed heavy in my chest. Because it was true. Every day felt like trying to keep my head above water while something pulled me down by the ankles. I looked up at her finally. Why do you care? Quote. She held my gaze. For a second, the CEO mask slipped. 9 years ago, she said slowly, I was engaged. That surprised me. She never talked about her personal life. We had an apartment in Chicago, wedding planned. I thought everything was secure. Her voice stayed calm, but I could hear something underneath it. Then I found out he had hidden debt. In my name. Credit cards I didn't know about. Loans I never agreed to. I stayed silent. I walked away with almost nothing, she continued. $42,000 in debt that was not mine, and a job that did not care why my performance dropped. My chest tightened. I could picture it. The same fear. The same math at 2 in the morning. I worked 3 jobs, she said. Corporate during the day, waitressing at night, consulting on weekends. I barely slept. I lived on cheap noodles and free event food. She looked at me again, not as a CEO, as someone who had been exactly where I was. I ended up in the hospital twice, she said. Once from exhaustion. Once because stress damaged my stomach so badly I could not eat. The bright bathroom lights suddenly felt too harsh. I almost broke myself, trying to prove I was still valuable, she said quietly, and no one stopped me. Silence filled the room. The music from the ballroom sounded distant, like it belonged to another world. I see that same look in your eyes, she said. The fear that if you admit you're struggling, you'll lose everything. I swallowed hard, because that was exactly it. If I told anyone how close I was to losing my apartment, I felt like they would see me as weak. Replaceable. She reached into her purse and pulled out a slim folder, plain. Unmarked. I proposed something to the board last month, she said. I frowned. Proposed what? A pilot program, she replied. For high-potential employees facing personal crisis. I stared at her. What does that have to do with me? Everything, she said without hesitation. You have talent. Your early performance proves that. Your decline is not about ability, it's about survival. My pulse quickened. I did not know whether to feel hopeful or terrified. It's called the Elevate Initiative, she continued. Financial counseling, emergency assistance, salary review, structured mentorship, not charity, and investment. Investment? I repeated. In people worth investing in, she said. In people who show up even when their lives are falling apart. I shook my head slightly. You're saying you'd just give me money? Quote. A small smile touched her lips. Not give, adjust. Your salary would increase to $4,800 every 2 weeks. I felt dizzy. That was almost double. That's not possible, I whispered. It is, she said calmly. But there are expectations. You would be the first participant. You commit to 12 months. You meet with financial advisors. You meet with me weekly. You rebuild properly. Why me? I asked again. She did not hesitate this time. Because you remind me of myself, and I refuse to watch another person burn out in silence. The weight of her words pressed against my chest. No one had ever looked at me like that. Not as a problem. Not as a burden, but as potential. And this stays between us, she added softly. The details, the support, until the program formally launches. I looked at the folder in her hand. My hands were shaking. This felt too big, too fast. Like my entire future was balanced on a decision made in a locked bathroom at a company party. What's the catch? I asked. No catch, she replied firmly. Only commitment. I will invest in you. You will show up fully. No hiding. No pretending you're fine when you're not. The idea scared me, letting someone see the cracks. Admitting I needed help, she stepped closer, lowering her voice. You do not have to drown just because you are too proud to ask for air. My eyes burned. I blinked quickly. For months I had felt invisible. Now I felt seen. And that was almost harder. If I say yes, I asked slowly, what happens next? She held out the folder. You sign. HR processes it Monday. Your new salary hits next pay cycle. And Monday morning at 7, you sit in my office and we start rebuilding your life. Rebuilding your life, not just your job. My chest felt tight, but not from panic this time. From something else. Something like hope. I looked at her again. At the woman who had walked through her own fire and was now standing in front of me, offering a way out of mine. This was bigger than a paycheck, bigger than overtime. This was a turning point. And standing there under those harsh white lights, with the door locked and the world outside unaware, I knew that whatever choice I made in the next few seconds would change everything. My hands were still shaking when I took the folder from her. It felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more than paper inside it. It carried risk. It carried hope. I looked down at the first page. My name was printed at the top. Beneath it were words about performance recovery, leadership mentorship, salary adjustment, and structured support. It all looked formal, real, not a dream. I don't know if I deserve this, I said quietly. Her voice was firm but not cold. This is not about deserving. It's about potential. And I don't waste resources on people without it. That sounded like her. Direct. Clear. I took a slow breath. For months I had been surviving on fear. Fear of losing my apartment. Fear of losing my job. Fear of admitting I was barely holding on. Now someone was offering me stability, and that scared me even more. What if I fail? I asked. Then we adjust, she replied. Failure is data. Quitting is the only thing I won't accept. Something about that made my chest loosen. She was not offering perfection. She was offering partnership. I signed. The pen felt steady in my hand by the time I finished writing my name. She took the folder back and slipped it into her purse. Then she unlocked the bathroom door. The click sounded softer this time. "Go home," she said. "You look exhausted." The music from the ballroom rushed back in as we stepped into the hallway. She walked back toward the party without looking at me again, calm. Composed, like nothing unusual had happened. But everything had happened. That weekend felt unreal. I kept expecting an email telling me it was a mistake, that I misunderstood, that HR rejected it. But Monday morning, when I opened my inbox, there it was. Subject line, compensation adjustment confirmation. My new salary was listed in bold numbers, $4,800 every 2 weeks. I stared at the screen for a long time. For the first time in months, I did not feel the tight panic in my chest. The math worked, the rent worked, the bills worked. I would not have to choose between groceries and gas. At 7 sharp, I sat outside her office. When she called me in, she looked the same as always, controlled, focused. But her eyes were softer when they met mine. "Good morning, Ethan," she said. "Good morning," I replied. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "This is step 1, stability. Step 2 is structure." For the next hour, we mapped out everything: financial counseling appointments, debt repayment strategy, savings goals, performance benchmarks at work, clear timelines, clear expectations. There was no pity in her voice, only direction. "You will not work past 6 unless approved," she said. "You will eat lunch away from your desk. You will sleep at least 7 hours. If you start slipping, you tell me." I almost smiled. It sounded strict, but it also sounded like someone who cared whether I stayed standing. The first few weeks were strange. I kept waiting for the ground to fall out from under me. But instead, things began to settle. I paid my rent without panic. I bought groceries without calculating every dollar in my head. I met with a financial advisor who helped me build an actual plan instead of just reacting to emergencies. At work, my focus returned. My reports became clean again. My numbers tightened. My mind felt sharper because I was not constantly calculating survival. Every Tuesday at 7, I sat in her office. Sometimes we reviewed data. Sometimes we talked about long-term strategy. Sometimes she asked simple questions like, "Are you sleeping?" One morning, after reviewing a client projection I had rebuilt from scratch, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. "This is the analyst I saw in your file," she said. My chest warmed at that, not because of the praise alone, but because she had seen this version of me before I could see him again. Weeks turned into months. The Elevate initiative quietly expanded. 2 more employees joined, then 3. It was still private, still structured, but I could see it working. People looked less afraid in meetings, less exhausted. One evening in early June, I stayed late finishing a presentation. Old habits. The office was mostly empty. The city lights outside my window shimmered against the glass. I heard heels in the hallway. She stepped into my office doorway. "You're still here," she said softly. "Just wrapping up," I replied. She walked in and closed the door behind her. Not locked this time, just closed. "I told you," she said, "no unnecessary overtime." I leaned back in my chair. It felt good to finish it tonight. She studied me for a moment, not analyzing, just looking. "You're different," she said. "In a good way? In a stable way." That made me laugh quietly. Stable was not a word I had used to describe myself in a long time. She walked to the window and stood beside me. The office lights were dim. The city below looked calm. I pushed myself past the breaking point once. She said, "I won't let you do that." The closeness felt different now, not intense like the bathroom that night, not formal like the boardroom, something in between, something warmer. "I don't know how to thank you," I said. She turned to face me, by succeeding. Our eyes held for a moment longer than usual. The air felt heavier, not uncomfortable, just charged. We had started as CEO and employee, then mentor and participant. But lately, something subtle had shifted. There were pauses in our conversations that lingered. Small smiles that lasted a second too long. It was not spoken. It was not inappropriate. It was simply there. "Take the weekend off," she said quietly. "No laptop." "I will," I promised. As I gathered my things and walked toward the elevator, I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Not just relief. Not just gratitude. Possibility. Not only for my career, but for something deeper that neither of us had named yet. The first time I realized this was no longer just about career growth was on a Tuesday morning in late July. I walked into her office for our usual 7 a.m. meeting, expecting numbers, projections, performance charts. Instead, she was standing by the window looking out at the city. The sunlight caught in her hair, softening her sharp edges. She turned when she heard me. "You look rested," she said. "I am," I replied, and for once, that was not a lie. We talked through the latest client presentation. Everything was solid, clean, precise. When we finished, there was a quiet pause that did not feel like business. "You've rebuilt faster than I expected," she said. "I had the right support," I answered. Her eyes held mine longer than usual. "You did the work." Silence settled between us, not awkward, just heavy with something unspoken. "Ethan," she said slowly, "I need to ask you something that is not in any performance plan." My heart picked up slightly. "Okay. When this year is over," she continued, "when the program formalizes and you are no longer under my direct mentorship, what do you want?" The question caught me off guard. For months, my only goal had been survival, then stability. I had not allowed myself to think beyond that. "I want to lead," I said finally, "not just projects, people. The way you lead, with structure, with vision." She studied me carefully. "That path is possible, but it requires distance from me professionally once you step into it." I understood what she meant. Boundaries, ethics, corporate reality. "And personally?" I asked before I could stop myself. The room felt very still. She stepped closer, not touching me, just closing the space slightly. "Personally," she said softly, "I have been careful." "So have I," I admitted. The truth had been building for weeks, in the way our conversations lingered, in the way she looked at me when I succeeded, in the way I felt when she walked into a room. "I never intended for anything beyond mentorship," she said, "but I would be lying if I said I have not felt it." My pulse was loud in my ears again, just like that night in the bathroom. But this time it was not fear. "What happens now?" I asked. "We do this the right way," she replied. "Clear, controlled, always controlled. You complete the program. You step into the senior analyst promotion the board approved last week." I blinked. "Promotion?" She allowed herself a small smile. "Your performance earned it. That was separate from me." My chest tightened, but not from stress. "Once you are in that role," she continued, "you will no longer report directly to me. Different department head, clean lines. And then," she said, her voice lowering slightly, "if we still feel this, we explore it outside of these walls. No secrecy, no hidden meetings, no blurred ethics. Clarity. Just like everything she did." I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. "You thought this through?" "I think everything through," she replied gently. "Especially things that matter." The weight of the last year settled over me in that moment. The breakup, the fear, the noodles in my car, the locked bathroom door, the lifeline she offered. "You didn't just save my job," I said quietly. "You saved me." She shook her head slightly. "You saved yourself." I just refused to let you sink. Quote, "There was nothing impulsive about what happened next. No dramatic gestures, no rushed decisions." She extended her hand to me. "Finish what you started," she said. "Step into who you are becoming. And when you're there, when you're steady on your own, we'll see where this goes." I took her hand. Firm, warm, real. 3 months later, I stood in front of the leadership team presenting a strategic analysis I had designed from scratch. My voice was steady, my numbers flawless. When I finished, the room applauded lightly. Victoria did not smile openly. She kept her professional composure. But I caught it. That small shift in her eyes that said she was proud. My promotion became official the following week. New department, new title, clean reporting structure. The following Friday evening, for the first time, I met her outside the office. No boardrooms, no files, no folders, just a quiet restaurant overlooking the river. She wore a simple navy dress, no CEO armor. I wore a suit that actually fit properly now, not because I had to impress her, but because I felt like I finally fit into my own life. "We did this right," she said over dinner. Yes, I agreed. There was no rush between us, no secrecy, just two people who had walked through fire separately and chosen to stand side by side when the smoke cleared. Later that night, as we stood by the river, the city lights reflecting off the water, she looked at me the same way she had in the bathroom months ago. Intense. Steady. "This stays between us," she whispered. But this time it meant something different. Not secrecy, not fear. It meant something sacred. A beginning that had been built carefully, earned honestly. The night she locked that bathroom door, I thought my life was ending. I did not realize it was the moment everything truly began.